Hello viewers, my name is Jordan Golson, and this is the Ford F-150 Lightning electric pickup. I am at 100% battery charge, and it shows 320 miles of range, which is exactly what the EPA says it should get on a full charge. And it's got two motors, more than 500 horsepower and 700 torque, and this is just a pretty exciting truck. And Ford didn't want to just make an F-150 that was electric. They wanted to add functionality to make the electric F-150 have more capability. And so they added the Mega Power Frunk, which is the huge enclosed lockable storage area with power ports up at the front. And then they wanted to include bi-directional power, so you can use the F-150 Lightning to power your house if there's a power outage. And then there's something they call Pro Power Onboard. They've got great names for everything here. Pro Power Onboard gives you 9.6 kilowatts of total power that you can take off from the battery to use to charge things, power them on a job site, for example, at a tailgate. You want to run a TV, you want to run a Traeger smoker at your tailgate, you can do all that off of your truck. All of those things are fantastic for truck owners. They have more than 200,000 reservations. 3/4 of those people are new to Ford. 4/5, 80% are new to EVs, and half of them are new to pickup trucks entirely. And that's what makes the F-150 Lightning so interesting. So it's opening both EVs and trucks up to entirely new customers. This is for EV owners who would never have chosen a truck before, and this is for truck owners who would never have chosen an EV before. And so here I am driving it, and I can tell you, it feels like an F-150, but actually it rides better because it has independent rear suspension. It's quiet, it's incredibly capable, it's incredibly powerful. I've only been driving it for maybe 30 minutes, and I can already tell you, this feels exactly how I would have expected. The only complaint that I can come up with so far is the charge speed when you're fast charging. And honestly, you're not going to do it that often. They say it can charge from 10 to 80% in 45 minutes, something like that. And I wish it would charge faster. But in terms of battery size and range, 320 miles, that's going to be plenty. And the power and the speed and the torque and all that is more than capable. You can feel the weight in the corners, but it doesn't feel as big as the GMC Hummer EV. It doesn't feel like it's fighting physics quite as much as that truck is. It just feels like an F-150 with a whole bunch of payload, which you can think of it as an F-150 with a bunch of payload. But it's consistent payload down low in the same spot. It's predictable. They've designed it for it, and that's part of why the independent rear suspension is there. So it handles that weight well. It does all of the truck stuff well, and that 320 miles of range, it's important to note, is with 1,000 pounds of payload in the truck. Payload includes everything that's in the truck that's not the truck. So it includes luggage, it includes passengers, it includes cargo, it includes all that stuff. But 1,000 pounds is, you know, a couple of people and their stuff and maybe some stuff in the bed. So that's the driving experience. It feels like a truck. It drives like a truck. The steering is very sturdy. It's very predictable. They've done all the testing, built Ford tough, and Ford knows how to build pickups. They're going to be well put together. Let's talk about the exterior a little bit. At first glance, if you're not a truck expert, you're gonna think, oh, that's an F-150. But it has been tweaked. Basically, every panel is a little bit different from a regular one. Up front, you have the Mega Power Frunk, so that can open up. There's power in there. You wanna charge your laptop, you wanna charge power tools if you're working, whatever. Around back, the interior of the bed is exactly the same as a regular F-150. And so if you have toolboxes or any sort of equipment, things that go in the bed of the truck, they're all going to mount. All the mounting points are the same. Underneath, it's totally different, and so they had to work really hard to re-engineer it and make it the same as the regular F-150. Now, you wouldn't know that by looking at it, but they knew that their customers would want to take toolboxes out of their existing F-150 and put them in here, or use existing accessories from aftermarket upfitters, things like that. And so you can do all that with the F-150 Lightning. The tailgate has all kinds of things. It's got a step built in, it's got rulers on it, it's got a phone holder, it's got places to put C-clamps if you're gonna be using tools, things like that. In the back, there are power outlets, both 110 volt and a 240 outlet if you want to use that. You can plug in a welder, you can plug in all kinds of stuff. You can even plug in an EV charger to use a 240 volt plug to level 2 charge an EV, and you can even, if you're crazy, use the mobile charger to plug in the truck to make it charge itself. Why would you do that? you wouldn't, but you could. And when they were demonstrating this for us, they showed it plugging into a Mustang Mach-E. Of course, I asked, can you plug it into itself? And they said, why does everyone ask that? But yes, you can, and all you do is get parasitic losses. Unfortunately, they were not able to invent a perpetual motion machine, though that would have been cool. Here is one of the key features of the F-150 Lightning. This is actually in the regular F-150 too, but it has BlueCruise, which is Ford's hands-free driving system for highways. And so I turn this on, we're on a limited access highway here, and I can drive along, talk to you, not touch the steering wheel, and what it does is it has cameras that look at the lane lines, and it will keep me in between the lane lines, behind the car in front of me, at the correct speed, driving along without me having to have my hands on the wheel. And what you get is you get a little blue screen here, and it says hands-free over there in the left-hand corner. Now, this system works on 130,000 miles of limited access highway, and it can only turn on those places. How it works is there's a camera here on the left, another one here on the right. The cameras look at my face, determine if I'm paying attention to the road, and then determine whether or not it will stay on. So if I look away for too long, look down at the screen, look at the camera, eventually it will complain at me like that and tell me to watch the road. So as long as I watch the road, I don't have to steer, I can just drive along. It actually works really well in the F-150 because the cameras are a little bit higher than in the Ford Mustang Mach-E, which it is also available in. It can sort of steer itself down the highway, so does that make it self-driving? No, but it's getting pretty close, and if you're on a long drive, it's a really nice feature. On the interior, it looks very familiar if you've been in an F-150 from the past year or two. Steering wheel, big digital gauge cluster. Here in the middle, you've got something called Pro Trailer Backup Assist. Now, this is a really cool feature for people who don't tow very often. And what it does is when your trailer's hooked up, if you're backing up, it can be really hard, especially for someone who doesn't tow very much, to back up because left is right and right is left, and you turn left and the trailer goes there. It's very confusing. And so what this does is you can just turn the knob to the left while you're backing up, and the trailer will go to the left, and it will do everything the steering wheel needs to do to make that happen. This is such a cool feature. This has been out for a while. I think it came out in 2016, something like that. And this is the new generation of it. And so if you've used this in the past, you knew that you had to put all kinds of stickers and things on the trailer to make it work. Mostly you don't have to do that anymore. It's gotten a lot easier. You've got your trailer brake controller here, big center screen. This is all digital. You've got a few hard buttons down here for regulatorily required things like the defrost, traction control, parking assist button, hazard lights, things like that. But for the most part, everything is controlled through this big screen. Navigation up top, and you can actually make this bigger if you want. Climate controls all down here. You got buttons for the up and down on the climate. I always complain when there isn't a knob, and so I will complain here as well. I do wish there was a dedicated knob that I could spin to change the temperature. We do have a dedicated knob here to change the volume, and this is actually pretty clever. This does not go through the screen or anything like that. It actually sticks to the screen, and it's got a little touch sensitive thing on the back. And so when you turn this wheel, it spins and the car knows that you're turning the volume knob. I think this is something that more car makers should do. Down here, this is straight out of a regular F-150. You've got a storage bin here that closes, which you're basically never gonna do. You're just gonna leave that open. USB ports down there, one USB-A, one USB-C, wireless phone charger. You got a little place here that you can put business cards, things like that. This little slot in the middle is for basically whatever you want. If you don't want to use the wireless charger, you can put your phone there. 2 cup holders. The gear shift here, if you aren't aware, there's a button and you can fold that down, and then that allows this to open and it turns into a place that you can work. Put your laptop, eat lunch, whatever. And then in here you have an enormous storage bin. 2 more cup holders back here. And then in the back, lots of room in the rear seats. Those fold up, flat floor, lots of storage. And then since this is the Platinum, you do have the enormous panoramic sunroof here. It does support wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, and so you can have the CarPlay up there. But in this, you'll really want to use the navigation because it has extremely clever range prediction. It combines an enormous amount of data to give you an accurate range on your battery and to tell you what your battery status will be when you arrive at your destination. This is something Ford's very proud of, and I think they're doing it better than anyone else right now. It combines current outside temperature, the weight of the truck, because the truck knows how much it weighs and how much payload you have, what the altitude is for the drive, what the speed limits are, all sorts of data to get you an accurate range number. Even new electric cars, sometimes the range number is not very accurate, and you got to like calculate all sorts of stuff and be like, oh, am I going to make it to the charger or whatever? They figure it all out. If you need to charge on your route, it'll show you what chargers are on the way and suggest some to you. And so by putting in the nav, you're going to get all sorts of information about what your battery percentage will be at the end. And so right now it says that my range is 288 miles, and that I'm going to use 45 miles of range by the time I get to my destination. Some other things in here, it does have 4G LTE connectivity, and you can use the Ford app, and that's included for some number of years, I think 3 years, something like that. They haven't really talked about what that'll cost later on. You can go in here and you've got all sorts of menus, like I can go to Trip Energy, and it'll tell me, where did my energy go on this trip? 86% to driving, 4% to climate, 6% to accessories. I assume that is the cameras that are plugged in, and also my laptop up in the front that's plugged in. And then it says 3% to external temperature. So I assume that's like it spending electricity to keep the battery at the right temperature. If I tap the truck up here, we have a million different settings. So there's 2 on-road drive modes, normal and sport, off-road, tow haul. And if you scroll down, you have a couple other settings. 1-pedal drive, you can turn that on and off. And because I'm in the Platinum trim, it has a propulsion sound option. It's actually very subtle. There's not a lot to it, but it's there and it's kind of cool, and you can turn it on and off. And so if you do spend the extra money to get the Platinum version, then you get propulsion sound. If you tap access, you can go in there and you can open the front trunk when you're parked. You can unlock the charge cord if that's plugged in. And then you go into towing, and this is interesting. So you'll program it for individual trailers that you have. So if you have a boat trailer and you have a horse trailer and you have a flatbed ATV trailer, whatever, you can program them all in, the size of them, how much they weigh. It'll figure out over time what that does to your range when you're towing them. And so all that data gets fed back into the cloud. It's all done anonymously, so Ford doesn't know or care who you are, what your trailer's doing. They just want to improve the range. And so all that's done in there with the trailer. And so when you hook up your horse trailer, you'll tell it, okay, this is my horse trailer. You can give it a name, and that'll make everything more accurate. Onboard scales, that's pretty clever. It literally has a scale in the back, and so it knows how much weight is over the rear wheels. And the largest single item in the assembly facility in Michigan, and I saw this, is this device that calibrates that rear scale. And it's like this giant rubber hand that basically pushes down on the scale to the certain weight, and that's what calibrates it. It's pretty clever. There's a smart hitch feature that will know how much your trailer weighs and figure out what the tongue weight is of the trailer, and if you need to rebalance the trailer to make it more safe. Zone lighting, this is in the standard F-150. You can turn on lights when you're parked, front lights, side lights, in the back, whatever. And because the truck is electric, you can run those lights for literally days on end if you want. Pro Power Onboard, this is the onboard power thing, and it tells you how much power is being used at any particular moment. So the front circuit, using barely any because basically I have my laptop plugged in up there. It can show you the rear circuits, the rear plugs, how much you're using, and it'll give you an estimate of how long it can run at a certain amount of power, and it will turn off the power before the level gets too low that you can't actually drive anymore. And you can change what that setting is. So you can say, oh, I want to make sure I have 100 miles of range or 50 miles of range or 200 miles of range left, so don't allow my battery to go below that level, and it'll do that. There's an intelligent backup power function, which this is again to power your house. And so if you get the proper equipment, which will be quite expensive, maybe $15,000, $20,000 to plug in, you can take electricity from the truck and use it to power your house in the event of a power outage. If you think about how much like a propane powered generator or diesel generator might cost to install at your house, the pricing is actually pretty similar. This has, I think, 131 kilowatt hour battery, something like that. And they say it can run your house at full tilt for 3 days. It'll run just the essentials for even 9 or 10 days. And then finally, you've got a couple of functions with the seats, because these are the most advanced seats that Ford has. And there's actually a massage function here. So let's turn that on, leave it at relaxed recovery. That sounds quite nice. There's a million different settings. You can customize this vehicle. It's so wildly complicated. Vehicle power down timer. You can set up the modem. You can decide what you want to do with the wipers, the lighting, locks, mirrors. You can set the door pad key code because you can leave the keys in here, lock the door, and just enter a code on the door pad to get in and out. What do you want it to do when you get a low battery? At what level do you want it to warn you that you have a low battery? You can go in here, you can turn the touchscreen beep on and off if that annoys you. It's got over-the-air updates, and so you can update the vehicle and get new features over time. Departure and comfort, here's some more EV stuff. If you leave for work at 7:30 every morning and you want your truck at 72 degrees or 70 degrees, whatever it is, it can precondition both the vehicle and the battery to make sure they're both at optimum settings before you take off, so you don't have to use battery power to cool down your truck in the morning. So if you live in Texas and it's very hot and it's 90 degrees, you don't have to use your battery to cool off the truck. It'll do that for you while it's still plugged in, and it'll get your battery to the correct temperature before you leave, and all of that is for improving range. And so in many ways, this is exactly what Ford said it was. It's an F-150 that happens to be electric with some additional really cool features like the Mega Power frunk and the bi-directional power, things like that. It's extremely comfortable, but it doesn't look weird. It doesn't feel weird. It just drives like a truck. And I've heard this from a lot of customers about electric pickup trucks. The Rivian, it's obvious that there's something different going on. The GMC Hummer EV, well, that's not really practical as an everyday truck. And then there's the Chevy Silverado EV, which for better or worse looks totally different than the regular Silverado. This is one of the most exciting vehicles that's going to come out in 2022, and probably the most exciting EV that has ever come out. Let me know in the comments, what do you want to know about this truck? What questions do you have? I'll do my best to get answers for you, and I can answer those in the comments. I can make another video, but just know that if you have one of these on reserve, keep the reservation. This truck is really good. I've spent enough time in F-150s. I've spent enough time in EVs. Ford has hit this out of the park. And aside from the slower charging, this thing is a home run. Now the question is, can they make enough of them? Ford says they're going to do 150,000 a year run rate from their Rouge facility, the new factory that they built outside of Detroit. There will be supply chain issues, there will be other stuff, but they want to get this truck into as many people's hands as possible, and I can't wait to see it. So if you enjoyed watching this video, click here to watch another one. Thank you so much for watching. Drive safely.